And well, the controversies surrounding now resigned Deputy Queensland Premier Jackie Trad have continued for months, with many calling for her resignation long before this latest CCC investigation. With the Queensland election coming up in October and recent polling showing public support for the Palaszczuk government is decreasing at the time that other leaders have had a boost out of the coronavirus, this latest issue could see the opposition become a serious contender. The Queensland Opposition Leader Deb Frecklington joins me now from Brisbane. Thank you for your time tonight. I just spoke then with Stephen Waddell of the Courier Mail. I watched this all unfold over the weekend. She was safe and she was being supported by the Premier. Now she's gone. Does this surprise you, what happened over the weekend in relation to your opponents?
Well, look, not at all, and good evening, Peter. One of the biggest issues we have in Queensland is the chaos and confusion around the Palaszczuk government. So, unfortunately, we've now up to our third treasurer in 2 days. It's really quite unbelievable. What has played out is basically an end of a long line for Jackie Trad. The Premier really should have shown some leadership over 6 months ago and sacked her last year when the first, or probably about the second or third integrity scandals started plaguing the government. Right now, Peter, in Queensland, we've got 300,000 people out of work because of the coronavirus, and more probably to come, unfortunately. And yet we've got the Palaszczuk government that is embroiled in this integrity scandal after integrity scandal. So was I surprised that it played out as it did on the weekend? Look, who knows when it comes to the Palaszczuk government. Even the new Deputy Premier, the guy that took Jackie Trad's job, I mean, he himself has been embroiled in enough of his own integrity scandals. He was the one using a rigged poll to change the Lady Salento Hospital name. That in itself, he's someone that oversaw $500 million worth of ICT failures. Now, Annastacia Palaszczuk herself, Peter, let's remember, she was found in contempt of Parliament, the first Premier in Australian political history to be found in contempt of Parliament. I mean, the rot really does start with Annastacia Palaszczuk and her inaction or her inability to deal with the integrity crisis that keeps plaguing her and her government. Like I say, this at a time...
I want to just ask you about the budget. What responsibility does Trad personally bear for the significant reversal of Queensland's budget fortunes?
Well, look, Annastacia Palaszczuk has been the Premier of Queensland for 5 years, and over those 5 years, Trad was only the Treasurer for 2 years, and under Trad's being Treasurer, she introduced the 10 or 9 new taxes, but what we've seen is a consistent failure of the budgetary measures under Annastacia Palaszczuk, full stop, over the last 5 years. The Premier cannot hide from this. Before coronavirus, in Queensland, we had the highest unemployment rate in the nation, the highest number of business bankruptcies, and terribly, the lowest business confidence in the nation. Now, this is all under Annastacia Palaszczuk's watch. We've now got, like I just said, the third Treasurer in 2 days. But when put to the new Treasurer, will you give Queenslanders a budget this year? He was unable to answer that simple question. Now, that is unbelievable and unexcusable. Peter, Queensland, under Annastacia Palaszczuk, likes to be, either the bottom of the pile or the first of everything. So the first first state government in Australia not to have a state budget this year. And it is an election year. Every other state and the federal government, yes, they've delayed their budgets, but they are still having a budget this year.
I want to ask you, the main job of state governments, and I think it's come home to people so much in the coronavirus crisis time to understand the lines of responsibility between the Commonwealth and the states. But people understand you. You run the schools and hospitals in state government. You support the police. You run the police. You pay for the police. Economic development, infrastructure, all the basic building blocks of people's community lives are all dealt with by the states. Now, what's been the biggest mistakes of Palaszczuk, and what would a Frecklington government do differently?
Well, first of all, the Frecklington government already has we would already have an economic plan out there. It was myself and the LNP that put out a roadmap to recovery, a plan out of the coronavirus crisis that we're in. We did that last week. We did that, Peter, because the Palaszczuk government should have been doing it. And now, a week later, we know why they weren't doing it. It was because they're again embroiled in another integrity scandal. I've already announced big, ambitious, bold plans like building the new Bradfield scheme, getting to work on building a second M1, fixing up the Bruce Highway, making sure we're doing something about supporting rural and regional Queensland. I've already announced we want to open up the Galilee Basin, get the royalties into an infrastructure fund that can fund the hospitals and the roads. And very importantly, Peter, we will fix up the health and education sector. Now, under Annastacia Palaszczuk, we've seen the debt blow out, but we've also seen, even before the coronavirus, we've seen the hospital system failing. We've got ambulance ramping, people not being able to get fixed up within surgically recommended times. These are failings of the Palaszczuk government. Even if you look at the regional road program, it's around $7 billion behind where it should be. I mean, this is a government that has just been caught with inaction after inaction and haven't been able to get the job done. And like I've talked about it before, highest unemployment rate in the nation and lowest business confidence. What a Frecklington government would do would invest a bit of confidence back into the state, get people investing in this great state of ours again, get people back into work. And you know what? If you are sick, get fixed up at the hospital. And if you've got children, your kids can get a decent education, because this
just quickly, Deb, I've got to go because I've got another guest to come on to talk about coronavirus. But you mentioned the Bradfield scheme. Anyone who watches my show understands how important this scheme is. I think it's got enormous support out there in the community. I understand you've got some money on the table for CSIRO to work on the scheme, but is that a plan of the scheme to actually do it, or is it just yet another feasibility study?
No, look, I've definitely got a plan to do it. Yes, we've put money towards a CSIRO to have a look at it, but I've already got to work, even from opposition. I've written to the federal government to ensure that we've got the support through the early works that are happening in Hells Gate Dam. I've written to the Deputy Prime Minister about that. We're in constant communication about what needs to happen now so we're not wasting any time. And now with the coronavirus and what it has done to this great state of ours, we need to make sure that the minute after the next state election, if we're so fortunate to get in, that we get to work on that major project. This is something that is a game changer for Queensland. It is incredibly important for the future economy, whether it is extension of manufacturing, of course, the hydroelectricity, but also, most importantly, ag. And it is just a project that needs to happen.
I couldn't agree with you more. I back you 110%. I'd like to have you come back on and we'll just deal with that subject matter, because I think people are desperate to see some hope on the horizon on water. And I think if you are serious about doing it, let's have the airtime and go through the plan and see what you do.